Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are now going to do a quick roundup of round 7 in the Queensland Championship. And to start with, we have the top board game between the leader, Brodie McClymont, and the defending champion, Dusan Stojic. Now, Brodie has amazingly enough only dropped one draw so far as I can see. So before this round he was leading by a clear point, and all the results can actually be seen on the site chesschat.org, where you can in fact find most if not all of the information about Queensland chess. And here are the results, for example, from the 7th round. And before the 7th round, we can see that Brodie McClymont already had a 1-point lead over his nearest competitor, Dusan Stojic, and the defending champion, and the Grandmaster present, Daniel Fernandez. Closely behind them are Yi Liu, Stephen Solomon, and Igor Paevsky. So all the results are here for you to see. Now, if we go back to our main board, here we'll have a quick rundown of the game's A6, an interesting variation. The point really is it's a trick, and the trick is if white continues like normal with d4, black takes on d4, white recaptures on d4, and then with the knight, say, white plays the knight to d4, and now black plays e5, and it's very difficult to find a good spot for the knight. It can't go to b5, as it can in many variations. If white plays the knight f5, black will play the immediate pawn to d5, and after knight b3, black can play knight f6 to attack the pawn, and if it's defended by knight c3, can play moves like bishop to b4, and usually can get in a quick d5. This is a trick I've actually used myself on a number of occasions, and quite a few people have played d4 just out of routine, not knowing the little difference. But of course you can't trick a strong, experienced IM like Brodie with this, and he plays b3. Another line that I've played quite often is seeing that a6 is probably going to be connected with b5, is instead of b3 to play g3. c3 is also a move which can then transpose into a French after e6, d4, d5. So there are many ways to play from this position, but b3 is definitely one of the better ones. So black plays b5, and white immediately wants to know where that b pawn is going. Now, if a move like b4 comes along, then white will have control over the c4 square, which is actually the main idea. Dusan plays bishop b7 immediately, trying to entice white to make a concession of some type. An interesting move. I'm going to have a look at this position myself at some stage and see if e5 is not an interesting way to answer the attack on the e-pawn. In the game, Brodie decided to take, which is a move that requires considerably more calculation. For example, after bishop e4, perhaps white can give up the pawn for the center, for a central pawn, but after ba6, yes, it's probably a bit too much, but we'll see. So, Dusan just recaptured, didn't want to go in for those complications. White swaps the rooks and takes the pawn on b5. Now, bishop b5 means that Brodie's obviously done some calculation. Bishop b4, this is actually quite interesting. I tend to be a bit more classical and less on the calculation, or more classical, I would say lazy, and would have played this slightly differently for white. But I'm interested to see how Brodie handles it. Knight c3, gaining more tempos, bishop back to b7, and that is actually interesting. So he's going for the immediate tactical solution. The upshot of this is actually that because the pawn on d7 is pinned at the moment, it's a little bit difficult to protect the c-pawn. Not that difficult, as one can see, but instead of completing his development, white has decided to solve or to present some practical problems to black. Another time it's defended, and now queen to a1. Again, another interesting move. Knight f6. Now, like I said, in this position, I want to play, after queen e5, I want to play bishop d6. I don't care if it somehow costs me a pawn after queen g5 castles, take something, but yes, I like the move bishop d6. Bishop d6 actually to stop my threat of bishop. If queen g5 castles threatening bishop f3, so perhaps white would instead go back to e3 after bishop d6. Not exactly sure. I'll have to ask Brodie if the opportunity presents itself. So queen e5, knight e5. C-pawn is still a hassle, but the g-pawn's gone. g1 and bishop e4. I guess later the bishop will be able to go to g6 if the rook captures on g7. d3, and the bishop goes back to f5. Interesting. Knight takes c5. Now the d7 pawn is attacked 3 times and defended 3 times, so no biggie. And now bishop d6. Wow. That again requires quite some calculation. Let's see. Knight takes. Now, knight takes d7, bishop d6 would be quite uncomfortable. So bishop takes a3. Now there's a discovered check with knight f6, king to e7, and the knight goes back to e4. Well, white is just a pawn up. I do wonder. Well, the g7 pawn is on breeze. I do wonder whether white got the maximum out of that pressure. Well, again, we'll have to ask a player or an engine something, because this is a hugely complicated position. Rook to c8, immediately activating the last piece, makes perfect sense. Knight to c4 with tempo. Bishop b4 check, and now king e2, because after c3 there would be the intermezzo bishop e4. Now, what should black do in this position? I still have the feeling that he should not lose immediately, or it shouldn't be that bad for black, but could very well be wrong there. Having said that, I don't know what move to suggest. Maybe even bishop g6 in this position. Is there a problem with the knight? Yes, after c3. No, then you can play bishop e4. So to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, I just don't know. It would take quite a while to calculate through all these forcing moves here, because there are a lot of them, which makes it very difficult to come up with a concrete assessment, and general positional considerations don't really apply in this kind of position. So black takes on e4. I never like giving up the 2 bishops if someone's not holding a gun to my head. Pawn takes, and rook c5. Chases the knight, the bishop away. Now g6. G6. I'm questioning every one of Black's moves in this position simply because from here he went on to lose, and I still can't help feeling that that Black should have some compensation for the pawn. But okay. 6 rook g3, white activates the rook, threatening c3. Rook attacks the weak pawn, and the bishop is attacked. Bishop is attacked again, it goes back to a7. This sequence of moves seemed logical. Now h3. Now, the knight on b8 needs to go somewhere, obviously. I wonder, should it go to d7 now? Is there a tactical refutation? Bishop takes. No. Yes, pieces need to come out. So let's see what happened. Attacking another pawn. The knight does go back. Now knight d7. Looks quite logical. And yes, takes immediately. I would be simply because white at all costs wants to avoid the knights being swapped, because that would lead to opposite colour bishops. So by taking the knight, he makes sure that it's a knight versus bishop ending. King takes c4, hoping to shut the bishop out with c5, I guess, and then something useful can be played. f5. Rook a3, rook switches across to the other side. Well, we certainly have a bishop on a useful square. Now it gets pinned. e5, I assume that white will take. Yes, takes back. And now are we going to see a move like knight b3 or knight f3? Knight b3 perhaps. Knight f3, no? Ah, okay. Rook h3, knight e5. Cheap trick, but effective, I guess. Rook e4 check, king moves away. And now, yes, so another piece gets swapped. Pawn takes, and now this is looking very unpleasant. This ending should just be a fairly easy win. I didn't understand that last move, but I guess there's not much to be done anyway. Yeah. Oops. Was a good attempt to trap the rook. It only had one possible square, but that square was good enough. Okay. So let's see what happened in the second game. And this is FM Li Yi Liu against Daniel Fernandez, our grandmaster. He's had a few draws, and this is why he's undefeated, but he's trailing Brodie McClymont, who's only dropped 1/2 point. Quite an impressive performance. And he has already played Daniel. So this is a knight c6. This is a very interesting opening variation. Black is quite happy to go straight for the end game, and white as well. And black now attacks f2, and that makes life slightly difficult. And in fact, it's already quite bad in this position because there's a pawn that's hanging. And king e6 is actually a very clever move, because if knight f2, white can play a check first. So black is keeping his powder dry. Now if rook d6 now without check, and obviously rook h1 makes the bishop cry. So the bishop moves, and now black can safely take the pawn. And after rook d6 now, check, and e3 is attacked, needs to be defended, and this is a very unfortunate ending. Not as bad as one would have suspected, but to begin with, but a strong player like Daniel can obviously win this quite easily, which he did. This move did not cause him great concern. And now we're going to have two connected passed pawns, and the rook from d5 will go back to d7, and then the king will join the pawns, and Yi's suffering would have continued. Luckily, he decided just to call it a day. Now, this game actually between Stephen Solomon and Igor Paevsky was actually very interesting. I thought for a long time that White was doing fine, but I didn't quite understand the position, I have to say. b6 seems like a strange move to me. My immediate reaction would have been to play knight to b5. It looks a little bit slow, but let's see. Knight c6, yes, I don't feel that that's the best way to take advantage of b6, but who knows, I might have to look it up. Maybe it's a great new move. Knight takes, pawn takes f4. Of course, it's necessary to play, if one wants to play f4, it's necessary to move the knight first to either take on c6 or play knight b5, simply because otherwise Black would have taken on d4 and pinned the queen with bishop c5. Attacks the pawn, moves it forward, and Black doubles the pawns. Queen e1, c5, c4, knight goes forward, queen d3. All these moves actually, now there's a clever c3, forcing the knight to go backwards. Queen takes on g7. This is just a pawn, and bishop f3. Now this is actually very strange. When I looked at this position, I kind of thought that White was doing extremely well, because he's a pawn up, he's got the two bishops, the Black's kingside is a bit fractured. But Igor seemed to think that Black was fine, and actually having a look at the position a second time, because Black has no structural weaknesses and White does, yes, perhaps Black is very fine. Just shows don't be judgmental. Rook to g8, queen f6, and now there are some problems. h5, it's easy to see in this position how Black will continue, but how is White going to break through if White wants to make use of his material advantage and his beautiful bishops, etc. Now, is the queen under threat? Maybe yes, maybe h4 and the threat of rook g6. No, not really. What's a good move to play here? Can White just develop a piece, play bishop e3 and try to move his a1 rook to d6? The problem with all of these moves is that Black is preparing to play knight to a5. It's difficult to defend the c4 pawn, and Black would also like to increase the pressure on g2 by swapping the light squared bishop. If we consider the position that's on the board right now, but without the light squared bishops, suddenly the other bishop, the bishop on c1, looks a little bit useless, whereas the knight has got the f5 square, the c4 square. So yes, having a second look at it, yes, it's Black's doing fine. Rook f2 seems like a perfectly reasonable move. Rook h7 and f5. That looks like a desperado move. White really didn't know what to do. Perhaps White should play bishop e3. And if knight a5, just play rook e1. And as they say, stop whinging, suck it up and defend. Because, okay, as soon as White plays, as soon as the black moves the knight away from c6, then f5 is a much better move for White. So the problem now is that he's losing his e-pawn. Black just takes and takes the bishop. And now the knight comes to an absolutely wonderful square. So although this isn't the middle game, Black has exchanged the pieces he wanted. And this position now becomes very difficult. The knight is just so much better. Also there's pressure on the king side. a5, nice move. Igor is moving his pieces around now. I was wondering, in this position I was wondering whether rook f5 wasn't strong. But Igor found another way to play it, threatening to move the knight now. Bishop h4, now rook f5. Okay, bishop goes back and knight g4. This is a slight bit uncomfortable. d2, that's an important pawn, because there's a big difference between two connected pass pawns and one passed in this position and passed and weak pawn. And I guess he didn't feel like, no, that makes sense, why would you? Threatening rook takes g2. White attacks the knight, knight goes back, and the pieces look unpleasantly placed. Knight f6 to prevent any stupid rook d7 and mate tricks somewhere. Bishop h4. Oh, is that a whole rook? Why is the game continuing? No, the game's not continuing. Okay, losing a whole rook never helps. Mind you, the position was fairly hopeless anyway. So, now Leonard Sandler beat Gene Nicauchi. This game I haven't had a look at yet. But let's see, it's an English, very popular. d5 transposes to a Tarrasch. No, we have b6. And bishop e7, so rook e1 is, one line here is to play d4, and after cd4 there are two moves, knight d4 and queen d4. Queen d4 is what I actually played against Grandmaster Avars Gipsles very long time ago and won a brilliancy prize with it, with checkmates on the everywhere on the board. After many sacrifices, knight d4 is a positional approach, and rook e1 is a more recent approach. Recent, I mean the 1990s. h5. That to me is a new move, but I'll have to check the database at some stage. But it doesn't inspire me greatly. I'm a big fan of early castling and developing your pieces, and this looks like a tactical operation by Leonid Sandler, and well, if Leonid plays a tactical combination, it's usually it makes sense. So bishop to g2 is not possible because of e takes f6, and there's two things, attack the bishop on g2 and the bishop on e7. So black has to take. White plays an intermezzo move to destroy the pawn structure and then takes the bishop, and this already looks very, very bad for black. Nominally he has material equality, but his pieces and pawns are much worse. I wouldn't expect this game to last too much longer, but let's see. So h4, we're looking at this position. I was wondering whether h4 or knight c5 would be played, but yes, there is no point in playing rook to b8 and allowing white to play whatever white wants to play, because positionally black is already busted. So off we go, hell for leather. White has absolutely no interest in taking that rook on a8. Takes, h takes, he's betting that he's going to keep that bishop for a while. No, I don't think black needed to, maybe he couldn't find another move, but I'm pretty sure that that was not going to be taken, that bishop. Bishop g2. a6. I'm not exactly sure how black is planning to get some compensation for his wretched position. And Leonid just wants to convert smoothly. Again, when it comes to simple tactical operations, Leonid's handler is quite good. Queen c5. Well, that's actually interesting, but yes, it makes sense. Why would you want to swap queens when your opponent is stuck in the middle with the pawns that he does have? Castles, just another quiet move. They can be the most annoying ones. You want tactical operations when you have a busted positional structure. But White's saying, no, I'm just going to target your weaknesses. Okay, that's a move, I guess. And now white has been patient, and so black launches. And yep, white had only just prevented e4 with rook f1. Black plays it anyway, and white's trying to get something happening somewhere. Sorry, black. Bishop g2. Rook c3 was also possible, but Leonid just wants to keep it as simple as possible, because the other rook is needed to defend f2. And now chasing the knight away. Now he's happy to swap queens. Black isn't. And just to restrict the black pieces. White has enough pieces around. A check. Nope, not allowing even a check. Oh, now a check is allowed, but won't do any good. Trying to open the position with e5. And pin. That's a nasty pin. And okay, we've got the swapping everything off at every opportunity. A little move. Check and check. White's not worried about his king going into the middle of the board. F2 is not exactly the middle, but okay. At least that's amusing. Back to h1, trying to pin the rook, maybe threaten queen h2. So a little repetition, and then g4. I guess kind of threatening g5 and queen e8. h3, that's didn't pose a threat, so g6. Queen d2. Not exactly sure what that's in aid of either. Let's see. What is that move in aid of? Oh, okay. So that after g6, king h6, f5 is a nasty check. So he's preparing a discover check. Black prevents it, kind of. And white chases the king over to an interesting square, decides, okay, that's enough adventure, goes back. Black would like to repeat. White decides that the white squares are quite handy after all. Black's king runs away. Now g6 check, king h6 looks fairly forced. Again threatening a little maneuver. Queen g3, check, king takes. Oh, okay, so Black has managed to win back one of the pawns, defending the e8 square, but now his pieces are a little bit discombobulated on b1 and d3, and rook e8 is hard to stop. I don't know what that's hoping to do, and it will be mate next move. King f6, rook to f8, checkmate. And, well, let's have a quick look through some of the other games. Okay, even looking at the final position, this looks like not the most exciting game in the world. Botvinnik system again. So far, both players are blocking the position as much as they possibly can. And at this point, if h4 is played, I'm going to stop looking at this game. But so far, it seems to still hold some possibilities that someone will open something at one stage. Nope, there's just a wholesale swaps coming, and bishop h3 to stop any further. Okay, well, this will do. We don't really want to see any more. At least it's a funny place to put the king on e5. Normally when the king goes to e5, it signifies that a result has been entered onto the board, but not in this case. As we can see, the game ended with the king on f6 for some reason, and not any progress has been made. Tom Maguire's game, we'll have a quick look. And, oh, that looks like a nasty move. And we've got variation discussed at the World Championship by Caruana Carlson. First time I saw this line or looked at it deeply, or well, semi-deeply, was when it was played in a candidates match, I think sometime in the 90s, when Kramnik was very young, and he defeated Udasin, I believe. And Kramnik drew his games with white quickly and was aiming to win with black because he didn't have much respect for Udasin's white repertoire. And in fact, if I remember right, he may have won 2 games with exactly this variation as black. And white seems to have us, well, okay, rook e1, don't know, is f4 a move in this position, b4, rook b1, rook e1, I don't quite understand what the long-term plan is. Now rook b1, what was the point of rook e1? Anyway, black is trying to swap off the dark squared bishop. He successfully managed to do that, and now his pieces are trying to infiltrate on the king side. It's provoked a weakness, goes back, and e4. Now he's got the e5 square. I think white has severely missed. Now he plays f4. Okay, it was just a little bit too late. Knight comes into e5, c5. Okay, white's counterplay kind of starts, but it's not going to get anywhere. I wonder if queen f4, does that lose material? Oh, f2 check. Nasty. Okay. F2 check, and of course if king f2, then the queen just moves and the queen is pinned. So queen h4, queen f2, queen f4, check, and well, that wins material, so that'll do, an easy game. Let's see, Michael Ostapenko won against Jaden Noy. Let's see how that game went. quiet Italian. Again, once the bishop goes back to c2, it's time to play d5, I think. This is bishop a7. Both players are bishop g. Both players are kind of playing moves that look standard, as I think I've mentioned before when we had a brief look at this game yesterday. Bishop e3 just looks awful to me, and I think black should just simply take those central pawns. If the d5 pawn was still on d4, it's a different story. But yeah, I don't understand why you would not just take that. Queen d7 is to inhibit g4. Now white takes, black takes, and queen d3. And black launches a kingside attack, which looks a bit funny with the rook on a7. Knight h2, rook back to a8, e3. Bishop moves, c4 to develop the knight on c3. Rook g8, still hoping for a kingside attack. Knight c3, king d8. Now, we thought that perhaps king d8 was simply because black had forgotten that he can't castle and had touched his king, but no, that doesn't make sense, because castling queenside queen to a7 looks very unpleasant. In fact, really unpleasant. Okay, it actually looks unpleasant to the funny degree. Because the only square to get out of the way, well, I guess black can play c6, but no matter what he does, its position is extremely ugly. Bishop a4, the queen moves away, rook to d1. I guess white's going to try to play c5, first keeping the position closed. Black feels it necessary to open it up. White wants to swap. Black doesn't. But there's big problems on the king side, queen side, sorry. And white switches, or threatened to switch to the other side until he had a better idea. And in fact, Michael of late has been swapping extremely often, even when there is no necessity, but it's nice to see a young player taking to swapping pieces. And that'll do. I guess Jaden had lost enough pawns. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'll take a little break from here, and we'll get back with round 8. All the games, as you can see, can be viewed on livechess.aunz.net at your convenience. The main page is here, and you click on Queensland Championship and view games, and you can also view the under 1600 games in this position. This is Aleks Wohl signing off for now, and we'll see you in the next live presentation.